Now, you would think that miking an acoustic guitar is pretty straightforward. However, there are some cool tricks you should know, as well as a few things you should try to avoid to get great sound. So let's go over some of those concepts with both condenser and dynamic microphones. Now, just so you know, we aren't going to go into the post-production process today. That's something I would burden Dylan with outlining, and that might just happen. Dude's a genius with that stuff, so get subscribed so you don't miss a thing. Now, single miking of an acoustic might sound a tad flat, but you can do plenty with it in post. But you still have to make sure you are capturing it right. Now, you can use a dynamic mic or a condenser microphone for this, depending on the amount of room sound you want in the recording. A condenser will capture more ambient sound, and a dynamic will capture more of the raw instrument. Now, this is where you really want to play around and find the sound you want. All acoustic bodies are different and will offer up different results depending on the placement. What I can say is avoid pointing the microphone at the sound hole. I know for a lot of people that might sound a bit weird, like, well, that's where the sound comes from, right? But that's actually not true. The whole top of the acoustic guitar is providing that sound. The hole itself is basically just a relief, and mostly a bassy mess comes out of there. Now, the usual recommendations you will hear are between the 12th and 14th fret, and as well around the bridge, pointed slightly towards the sound hole. You will find two very different sounds from these two sources. The neck position will offer less bass and should be more articulate, and will have more string noise when changing notes. And the bridge will have a bit more bass and a decent boost in the mids, with much less string noise. Now, here is how they sound. Now, of course, these are two starting points. Feel free to move that mic around to hear how the sound changes. You might find a sweet spot somewhere on your guitar. I do know that a lot of people like to point it at the bottom lobe front of the guitar, or if you have a cutout there. And at the bridge, some like to aim the mic a little higher towards the back, but still pointing towards the hole. Find your spot and hit record. Now, it is also important to consider the distance for the microphone as well. 6 to 12 inches should work just fine, but personally, I like 6 to 8 inches. Someone make that into a GIF. Good God, what did I just say? However, if you're using a condenser like this NT2A, your distance is a bit more open depending on the sound you're going for. The further away brings more ambience into the recording, and getting tighter to the guitar means that the gain goes down and you capture more guitar over room. The placements here are all quite similar. Again, move that mic around and try to find your position. Okay, so let's move on to the double miking of an acoustic. And here, there's several ways you can do it. Let's start with the XY configuration. This is where you set up a matching pair of mics in a 90-degree angle configuration and you hit record. Now, a few things about this. Matching is considered the way to go here, though I've done this with different microphones and had decent results. That said, it can smear your stereo image quite a bit if you don't at least have the same microphone. So I'll let you guide this one and do what works best for you. Now, there is similar positioning here. Of course, with the dynamic, that 6 to 12 inches still applies. But if you're using pencil mics like these are the Samson CO2s, they are condensers. And you will find you can back off a bit from the guitar for a room mix, but be careful you aren't capturing too much if you're in a lively and active room. Again, that 12th to 14th fret is very much encouraged with this setup to start. You can play around with the positioning after. But because you have two mics facing in different directions, you will be getting a much fuller sound. Check this out. Now, if you want to make that sound even more full, you can actually go to 120 degrees with the two microphones, and you can also take both tracks into a DAW and pan them left and right. And this is what you get when you do that. Okay, then next up you have the spaced pair approach. This is where you literally just space the mics apart. Now you can put one mic at the 12th to 14th fret and put the other one near the bridge. There's a bit of a rule here. It's called the 3-to-1 rule, meaning the mics should be spaced out 3 times their distance to the guitar. So if you're 6 inches away, the mics should not be more than 18 inches apart. Some like the 2-to-1, so if 6 inches away, they're 12 inches apart. There are some phasing issues when you do this, but that can also be intentional. Let your ear guide you. Now, this is the approach I took to recording my acoustic guitar for the Hurt cover Dylan and I did. And of course, I panned the mics in post. This is what it sounds like when they're not panned. And this is with the super wide panned version. Again, one microphone panned left and one microphone panned right. And that pan isn't set in stone either. You can play with it as you see fit to get your own sound. Now, there are other techniques out there as well. Frankly, you can use as many mics as you want. Sure, why not? I know Dylan once told me he sometimes uses a mic to pick up the fret hand scrapes. Sure. Just remember, the more mics you add, the more time you're going to spend in post-production fiddling with it to get it to sound just right. But there is one technique, and that's called MidSide. And that requires specific types of mics to use, as well as a bit of trickery in post-production. First, you need one cardioid style. Any of the cardioid styles works, but it should be front address. Lots of people like to use the SM57 for this, but anything front address should be fine, even a condenser. And then the second mic needs to be figure 8. Now, this works with any kind of mic that offers up the figure 8 ability, but most often you will see a condenser mic being used. Now, for this, you will need the cardioid mic pointed directly at the source, 12th to 14th fret, and the figure 8 turned sideways below it. And you want a perfect 90-degree angle for the capsules here. The mic should be as close as possible without touching. That is very important. Do not let them sit on top of each other. Now, once that's set up, record your audio, and your final files should sound something like this. That's all fine and good, stereo image and all that, but here's the special sauce. Make a copy of the figure 8, and then pan them hard left and hard right. And then this is the key. You have to put it out of phase. Otherwise, you probably won't hear anything because it will just cancel itself out. So once that happens, pot down your 2 channels and start playing the single cardioid mic track and slowly blend in the 2 figure 8 tracks until you like what you hear. That is how to get great wide stereo sound from MidSide Recording. It's literally amazing what you can do with just any microphone though. My favorite has always been the SM58. You can do a lot with it. And if you don't believe me, check this video out where Dylan and I just recorded a whole studio quality of Hurt with just SM58s.